first thing I did was I flew to Berkeley. I flew to Travis, and I guess I took a bus to Berkeley, where the man that I had been dating in Vietnam was going to law school. And so he said, just meet me at the law library. So I'm in my little cord uniform, my two-piece uniform with my little ribbons, and I go to the front desk, and there's this woman there, and she's older to me, maybe 30. And I said, I need a cab, please. She says, certainly. She said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the law library at Berkeley. And she said, oh, honey, you're going to want to take that uniform off, put something else on. And I said, why? And she said, well, a lot of people are very conflicted about this war, and I would hate to see you get hurt. And I'm thinking, I just survived a war, and I'm going to get hurt at Berkeley. I said, okay. So I went back to my room, and I changed, and then went to Berkeley. And I think of that woman so many times and what she spared me from having to, because at the time, this was 1971. Berkeley was, just that was a very bizarre place, and very anti-war and anti-service people, and she spared, God only knows what she spared me in that moment, and I'm grateful to her. Oh, I was never comfortable enough. I think the reason I was so quiet, like all the women who served, when we came home in the 70s, the overriding thought, even with Women's Lib and the feminist movement making a stand, the overriding thought was nice girls did not join the army, nice girls certainly never went to war. And I knew that wasn't true. And frankly, that just pissed me off. I mean, I was angry. Everybody around me knew I was angry. I just didn't know what to do with it. And I took all those memories, all that emotion, all that pain, and I stuffed it all. I thought, I can't deal with this. I'm the fun one. I'm the one who makes people laugh. I want that woman back. And in order to find her, I had to get rid of all this other stuff that I was not prepared to deal with. And I stayed that way. It was my deepest, darkest secret. I never told anyone that I had been in Vietnam for 20 years until Desert Storm. And then I get called back to active duty, and I'm now 41 instead of 21, and we're going to war again. And young men and young women are going to die again, and there won't be anything I can do about it again. And this huge black cloud of depression formed over my head and got lower and lower every day as we approached the ground war. And I thought, well, I knew I was depressed. I thought I have every right to be depressed just for all those reasons. And what about my marriage? And what about my dog? And what about my company? And it didn't have anything to do with any of that. It had everything to do with all of the things I had stuffed 20 years before, because they don't go away. They just stay there until you deal with them. And that's when I started really going through PTSD big time. But the good news was, for the first time, it was okay to be in uniform in public. And people were welcoming us home and thanking us, and they wrote us up in the local paper, and they're throwing parades for us, and I'm going, okay, this is very bizarre. This has never happened to me before. And I just thought, well, it's good. It's a little late, but better late than never. And it was a very good time to be in uniform, finally. For the 20 years prior to that, I was on active reserve a lot. That was my main job. And if I ever wore my uniform outside of the military milieu, I was looked at with one of two emotions, without fail: curiosity or disdain, for 20 years. So Desert Storm changed all that. So there was good and bad, but it was a long road admitting that I had PTSD and then dealing with it. Actually, the recruiters hadn't lied. I got one of my 3 choices. When I came home from Vietnam, I was stationed at Fitzsimmons in Denver. And I only spent 3 months there before I got off of active duty, but stayed in the reserve. And I went up to Aspen on vacation with my brother, and I fell in love. I said, I'm home. This is where I want to be for the rest of my life. And in Colorado, being in the mountains is extremely therapeutic. It doesn't register in your conscious brain, but it gets to your subconscious. Being in the wilderness, hiking, camping, being in those mountains. And my first year back after Vietnam, I got off of active duty and I did nothing for a year. I went up into the mountains and I said, I want to see this, smell this, feel this. I want to be away from crowds. I was like the wounded animal that goes into the forest to lick its wounds, and that's exactly what I was doing, but I didn't know it at the time. And we, now in Aspen, I serve on a board. I'm one of the directors for a group called Huts for Vets, which brings veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan who are struggling with PTSD up into the mountains for a guided hut trip where they have readings and discussions and mutual support from others who have been there, done that. And I just think, God, what a wonderful thing to have available for these vets, because our rate of suicide is 22 a day. 22 veterans a day kill themselves. And if we can touch, groups of 7 or 8, it's a great thing. It's the wilderness. Colorado is, for those who don't know, it's just magic. It really is. They're amazingly powerful. When I first saw photographs of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., the wall with all those names, I was so deeply touched, and something in the back of my brain said, you have to go there. And I think that happened to many Vietnam vets. We knew we had to go there. We didn't know why. We just knew we had to go. And
a pilgrimage.
Oh, absolutely. And that wall is so powerful and reflective. You see yourself. You can touch the names of those you lost. Yeah. And it's in chronological order of death. Most people don't know this. It starts at the apex and the middle, and it goes that way to the east, and then it picks up again at the west, and it comes back. So the first and last casualties meet at the apex of the wall, so that the soldiers' names are grouped together. They're on the wall with the people they died with, which is so powerful. And there are 8 women on the wall, all nurses. I want to make sure that's right. Yeah, because only the criteria was set by Department of Defense, not by the Memorial Fund. You had to be in theater and be killed there or die as a result of your injuries that were incurred there. And 8 women died, many more, and certainly many more servicemen and women have died since the war as a result of Agent Orange, PTSD, chronic diseases caused by exposure to everything that was over there. And so 2 more additions have been placed there. The one that is so important to me is the Women's Memorial, the Vietnam Women's Memorial. It's a statue in the round of 3 women, one an Army nurse who looked like all of us with our hair back here and our bangs and caring for a wounded soldier, and then to her right going around is a woman kneeling. She's wearing fatigues, but they're not military. She represents all the women who served in like the Red Cross and special services and the entertainers and the air traffic controllers and all the women who served in so many capacities in the war. And then the woman standing looking towards the sky, she represents the enlisted women or the officers who served in all kinds of jobs in the military. So we have civilian, we have nurses. Something like 86% of the women in Vietnam were nurses. That makes sense. Okay, yeah. But there were lots of other women there too. And when it was dedicated, all the women marched down Constitution Avenue from the Washington Monument, and there were thousands of us. And there, the streets were lined with people applauding and crying and saying thank you. And there was this guy up in a tree, and he's going, thank you, thank you, thank you. And there was one Air Force man in a flight suit who stood at attention saluting the entire time it took for the women to walk by. And as we came into the garden, the grassy area leading towards the Women's Memorial, there was a young man, he was in his 40s now, maybe 45, and he had a picture, big black and white picture of him and his nurse. And all it said was taken 1964, and he was trying to find her, to thank her. Please. It was like, this is the best day of our lives. And now we have our own memorial and our own stories to share with each other. It's great. Yeah, all of our veterans, I don't know that they want much. They just say, thank you for your service. That's it.